To the studio, Julie Morison of Health Psychology Associates, Livewell, and you're here to talk to us about eating disorders, and there's a big event that's coming up this weekend, which we'll get to all that stuff. First of all, good morning, and thank you for coming in here. We appreciate it.
Good morning. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We wanted to make some time because, you were just giving Chrissy and I some information, some numbers and statistics, and as far as eating disorders go, it's alarming.
It is alarming. So, actually the statistics, at least the last time we checked, 1 in 5 females will have an eating disorder in their lifetime. But I think the bigger shocker for people, 1 in 6 males will have an eating disorder as well.
We know, we actually, we know somebody, Chrissy and I both know somebody who in their family, the young guy is going through that. And it was very surprising. We were looking at pictures and stuff, and it seems unusual for men, young men, to have eating disorders. But according to that stat, in some way, shape, or form, guys and boys are just as affected by,
image
they're just as image conscious, and the peer pressure and just the pressures of the world.
Bullying can be a big thing for males as well. Actually, I think one of the recent statistics I saw was that 1/3 of all young males use some sort of eating disorder behavior to manage weight.
Yeah.
1/3.
Wow.
So now, is this the kind of thing too where, like, you sometimes you can look at somebody and are able to diagnose it based upon problems and just the way their body type is, but I would imagine most people you would never know that what was happening sort of behind the scenes would be something that could clinically be diagnosed as an eating disorder.
Well, it's interesting. It's a really good point. So, I think people assume that eating disorders means somebody's just incredibly underweight, and you'll see it and you just guess, oh my gosh, he or she is so thin, they must have an eating disorder. But when we look at eating disorders, we consider them to be very serious diseases of disconnection. So if somebody's really struggling, they're isolating. They are not sharing with every friend known to man that they have these symptoms. Instead, they're actually saying things like, I can't go out tonight, or, I'm going to stick in and that kind of thing. They're in their rooms. And it's because they're terrified that they would be confronted with a situation where they would call into question, why aren't you eating this, or why do you seem to be behaving in this way? Yeah. Anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa are the two, I think, most recognized eating disorders. With anorexia, people are that traditional underweight. I mean, that is it's a trademark symptom of anorexia, a significant underweight concern for them, and this pressure to continue to lose weight. But bulimia nervosa actually, which actually means ox hunger, which is interesting. The diagnosis where you're binging, and then as a result of that binge, decide to then purge in some sort of way.
And that's hard to recognize.
It's hard to recognize because they're not all underweight. And these are, again, very private symptoms.
Well, let me ask you this. You have an event that's coming up this weekend to just inform and educate people about eating disorders and raise money and awareness. What would you say to somebody who, like a young girl or guy or whatever, who's just like, I'm just doing this to manage my weight. Like, literally,
I can handle it.
Literally, like, it's one thing to not recognize that somebody in your family or around you has an eating disorder, but I would imagine most people who have it, they don't recognize that they have an eating disorder.
Well, I think the thing is that everybody copes in their own way. And when you're not ready to recognize there's a problem, you ignore it. You move on. You have to excuse it. It's a way of life, or I'm just trying to be healthy. And frankly, a lot of times it starts that way. People go on a diet, or they try to manage their weight in some way, and they just get stuck.
Yep.
And it's not intentional. And I think that's a huge thing to tell people, is that this isn't something you asked for. This is something that, honestly, you got stuck with. And for friends and family to know, this isn't a choice.
Right. Is there a very fine line, though, between like the serial dieter and the diagnosable eating disorder, or are they the same?
No, I mean, I think with all mental illnesses, the biggest thing is global. We call it a global assessment of functioning. How much is this interfering with your life?
Right.
We could have some huge
it.
statistical book where, a diagnostic manual where we could say, hey, listen, here's all the symptoms of XYZ diagnosis. And every single person would probably have a little bit of something.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I
mean,
right. But it's how much are you still...
But at the end of the day, how much does it affect your day? If I tell you, and this is the other big thing, eating disorders, and this is a huge thing for people to recognize, eating disorders are the number one most deadly of all mental illnesses. And if you think about that, if I rattle off.
Yeah, that's hard for people to wrap their brain around because you don't think of the end game necessarily as death.
Right. And
so how would you explain that then?
Well, what happens is these intense behaviors of restriction and purging seriously tax the body. And so you can list for people these medical side effects that will happen if they maintain their eating disorder for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. The problem is that people will get lab work back. A doctor will say, mom and dad bring this, teenager in. They say my kid's lost weight. And the doctor will say, let's do some lab work. Let's do some blood work. They do the blood work. They do an EKG. Kid's fine. So the kid says, see, I'm not sick.
See, I'm okay.
And the thing is, it truly is a game of roulette. Because at some point, as I tell my patients, if any of them are listening, they're rolling their eyes, you cannot outrun this. At some point, it will catch up to you.
And affect your body.
And affect your body. But even if we tell people that, sometimes that's not enough to make change because that's a rational attempt at an irrational problem.
All right. Well, the event is coming up this Saturday, September 27th, and it's the first National Eating Disorder Association walk, right?
Here in Albany, it is the first one. Yeah, a young woman, Natalie Posner, who is just impressive. She is in recovery from her eating disorder. She is a young woman who had to spend quite a bit of time working on her eating disorder, and she took it upon herself to come downstairs one day to her parents and say, I want to bring a NEDA walk to Albany. And they did her dad says, oh yeah, we did okay, yeah, sure. And then she said, no, I'm not kidding. I want to do this. And it kind of went from there. They've already raised, I think the last time I looked at it, it was something over $10,000. That was their goal.
Wonderful.
They already are surpassing that.
Yeah.
And they really...
I'm sorry. Was she a patient of yours or no?
She was a patient of. What ended up happening with Natalie is that she went away to treatment.
Yeah.
And a lot of people with eating disorders who get real stuck end up having to go away to residential treatment because for a while there was not intensive treatments around here. And Natalie's story is an interesting one because she and I had met previously, but she and I were talking about when she was really struggling, there were no intensive treatments around here. And I am so happy to be able to tell you that actually over the last year, we have created a pretty solid intensive treatment for eating disorders here in the Capital District so that we are not sending people away.
Good.
Because families, they need to have support here and people need to stay in their lives. If I say to somebody, now I want to take away your eating disorder, but I want to send you away to Philadelphia to
somewhere
go do
you
it.
have no idea,
You'll quit school, you'll lose your job. How about instead you stay home, we work on this really intensively and we get things going and you get to stay in your life.
Julie, you're a great spokesperson for this.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you.
Because you're just young and you're very passionate and you're just so incredibly relatable. I think that you've probably done an awful lot to raise a ton of awareness as well. So it's awesome. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah,
thanks. We enjoy working with them.
This.
I have to tell you, there is not another group of people that I have more respect for than the people who are trying to recover.
Yeah,
they're incredible. We have a lot of fun too. I have to say, in treatment, it's hard work, but. It's very cool.
Okay, so here's the details on the event. It's going to be happening at the Crossings of Colony, and that is going to be this Saturday. We want you to check in around 9. The walk will start at 10 and then end at 2. And, of course, the Crossings is at 580 Albany Shaker Road right there in Loudonville. And all the information is going to be up on our Facebook as well through fly92.com. And your website is albanyhpa.com,
yes,
correct?
It is. Yep.
Awesome.
And they can also just give us a call anytime if you feel like somebody's at risk or I think you may need some support. Give me a call. You can talk to me. We'll do a consult. We'll check you out.
You want to give out? You comfortable giving out your personal number right now?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Our number, and you can. The office is actually for Health Psychology Associates and Livewell.
Yep.
The number is 218-1188, and I am very okay with anybody, doctors, parents, patients, potential people who are struggling. Ask for me. I'd be happy to.
Ask for Julie Morison.
Wonderful.
Dr. Morison, happy to see them.